Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. Oh well, would you look at that? We got more evidence, more proof. And of course, the real story, more embarrassment for the Democrat Party. It seems almost like it's every single day something new drops in this Kilmar Abrego Garcia case, and every single time it makes the Democrats look dumber and dumber. And listen, Democrats, you can't tell me that I didn't try to warn ya. I said it explicitly time and time again that this was possibly the dumbest hill to die on. I'm not exactly in the business of giving them advice, but, just in my commentary, we were basically warning them that this would blow up in their faces. But like every single time, they're too blinded by their desperation for the next Trump scandal that they can't see the obvious boomerang headed right back to hit him in the frickin' forehead. And now, well, they're defending an abusive gang-linked criminal that they attempted to brand as just an innocent Maryland man, father and husband.
Maryland man deported Maryland man.
Maryland man.
Maryland father who was mistakenly deported.
Maryland man.
Maryland father. Maryland man
Mistakenly deported Maryland dad.
Yeah, well, not exactly your law-abiding Maryland man. And this week's evidence, an audio recording of Kilmar's own wife arguing for a protective order against this supposed law-abiding husband and describing him as totally abusive. Yeah, this is who the Democrats are sticking their necks out to defend. Let me show you guys exactly what's going on here. We got some stuff to get into, so let's roll the tape. All right, folks, so basically exactly like I said, we've got an audio recording of Kilmar's own wife, who currently is painting him as an innocent man that she wants so deeply to come back, because of course the GoFundMe scam is too lucrative to ignore. Well, we got her describing here in her own words how dangerous, abusive, and out of control this guy was.
Came to fill out a protective order, I think it was in December, but I didn't show up to the court because his family washed my brain telling me that his dad was sick and not to do it. So I didn't do anything. But after that, it was I would call the police. I have a lot of police reports. And I kept trying to get to the door basement to try to open the door, and then he pushed me. So then when I was able to go outside to get a phone, I called 911 from a disconnected phone. Now they took a long time to get to the house. It was probably 20-30 minutes. So I saw a neighbor walking his dog, and I opened the door and I was like, help. And then when he heard me, he grabbed me from my hair and then he slapped me. And then the neighbor, he didn't know what to do. He didn't know what to react. I have pictures of the evidence, all the bruises, because even on Wednesday, he hit me around 3 in the morning. He would just wake up and hit me. And then last Saturday for my daughter's birthday party, before I went to my daughter's birthday party, he slapped me 3 times. And then last week I did call the police. My sister called the police because he hit me in front of my sister.
Yeah, it's absolutely wild. And yet the left keeps pushing the narrative that he's just an innocent guy, just an innocent migrant man who was in America legally and was wrongfully deported. Everything around this guy is a lie, and it's not just dishonest, it's freaking repulsive. And it's crazy that Democrats thought that this was a good idea. I mean, literally, any other issue would have been better for them. They could have taken any other stance and it would have been better. But instead, they decided that this is the hill they want to die on. And they could have jumped ship a while ago, but they just refuse. No, they keep upping the ante despite all the evidence continuing to stack, with now Senator Chris Van Hollen, Kilmar Abrego Garcia's biggest crusader, this absolute smooth-brained Democrat, now coming up with the latest strategy, threatening El Salvador with sanctions.
We're doing this both to require the Trump administration to answer for its unconstitutional violations of due process and send a message to President Bukele that no, it is not cool to collude with Trump to deprive people living in America the right to due process. In addition to this resolution, I've called upon all Americans who care about their due process rights to vote with their feet. Don't go to El Salvador as tourists, so long as the government of El Salvador is violating the constitutional rights of people who reside in America. There are lots of other nice countries in the region. I've also called upon states to divest pension fund holdings from companies that do business in El Salvador. And finally, Senator Kaine and I, along with Senator Schumer and others, are planning to also introduce sanctions legislation targeting President Bukele and all those who are part of his government conspiring with Donald Trump to deprive residents of the United States of their constitutional rights.
Let that sink in. Democrats are now threatening another country because that country doesn't want to hand over a violent criminal back to the United States. I don't blame Bukele one bit. He sees Kilmar for what Kilmar is. He knows very clearly that this guy is not a wrongfully deported victim. He's a walking menace. A guy who was abusive with his wife, engaged in human smuggling, which, by the way, we actually have the body cam footage of right now.
Hello, sir. How are you? Good, and you? All right. You got a bunch of people in here, don't you? So where do y'all live at?
Where are you living? I live in Maryland.
Maryland?
Yeah, Oxford.
Whose vehicle is it?
What, excuse me?
Whose car is it?
It's to my boss.
Your boss.
He's hauling these people for money. There's 8 people in there.
Yeah, I know.
I'm not going to do a standalone video on the body cam footage, just wanted to play a little short segment of it to prove that it exists and that it was in fact him smuggling 8 illegals in that car. In other words, he's a human smuggler, pretty much confirmed at this point. Not much to talk about with the video because it's kind of a boring interaction, and the cop just lets him go his merry way, but that's another story. But anyways, abusive husband, human smuggler, an MS-13 member. Why would he return this criminal back to US custody? Bukele, if anything, is making the right judgment call by keeping him right where he belongs, especially as an illegal migrant, far away from America and in his country of origin. And actually, what's funny, Nayib Bukele's refusal to give Kilmar back basically proves that Donald Trump never actually defied any court order. Another claim from the genius Democrats, Donald Trump's defying the SCOTUS order. But SCOTUS simply said facilitate his return. And they issued that order after Kilmar was already gone. It was a procedural directive, not a demand to bring the guy back. And Donald Trump possesses no ability to force Bukele to release him, so the idea that Donald Trump defied a court order is completely bogus. And on top of that, after all the evidence that's been presented at this point, it essentially shows that Trump was right to deport him in the first place using the Alien Enemies Act of 1798. But despite all of this, Democrats just refuse to back down. They're so committed to this Trump derangement syndrome tactic, and it's blowing up in their faces. And initially Democrats didn't want to admit that. They were pushing full speed ahead on this Kilmar issue. But I think this week, after the 3 very crucial pieces of evidence dropped, the court order, the emergency hearing with Kilmar's wife's ex-husband labeling Kilmar as a, quote, gang member, the body cam footage, and now this, I think Democrats are starting to get some cold feet here, as Hakeem Jeffries is now telling his Democrat colleagues no more El Salvador trips. Hakeem Jeffries wants Democrats to put an end to El Salvador trips. Cory Booker and the Hispanic caucus were planning on going, but Democratic leadership seems to want El Salvador trips to stop for a while. And by the way, this comes only a couple days after Hakeem Jeffries said this.
I think, as you've seen, and there's been some great leadership from Senator Chris Van Hollen, who apparently indicated earlier today that either his constituent is returned or he plans to go to El Salvador himself. And that's exactly the type of action, as members of Congress, we can do to highlight the injustice, dramatize and amplify it, and force the administration to comply, which in this instance, I believe we will make sure happens.
They went from this is the exact type of action that as members of Congress we can do to whoa, wait. Maybe let's put this one on the back burner. No more El Salvador trips for now. Yeah, no wonder why. Maybe, just maybe, they've finally tuned in and realized that the optics of defending a gang member are starting to look a little bit bad. This is a political disaster for the Democrats, and it's likely going to get a whole lot worse because as we're seeing, Donald Trump's agenda is actually coming to fruition here, especially on the economic side. The whole tariff scare is kind of not playing out the way the Democrats suggested it would. Things seem to be going in the right direction, trade deals, good jobs reports, massive investment in the country, onshoring of jobs, costs are going down because of the increased energy production. Things are going well. Trump is going to likely find his stride here, and all the while, as Trump's putting his America First agenda together and creating a path of success, the Democrats are there yelling, screaming over and over again like a freaking broken record, bring back the illegal migrant MS-13 gang member abusive husband. Stupid. Absolutely stupid. They've built zero momentum. They've made themselves look like utter fools, and I just don't get what they're going to run on heading into 2026. And if it's this Kilmar guy, if it's this whole due process nonsense that isn't grounded in reality, well, I just don't see it. No, I see it very much backfiring in their freaking faces. Anyways, that's pretty much what I got for you guys on this one. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to leave a like and possibly subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.